Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
Located at 109 Wall Boulevard in Gretna, Uniforms by Logo Express provides school uniforms, medical wear, hospitality wear, safety and industrial wear, and so much more. We offer a number of locations on both sides of the river. 2 in Chantilly, 1 in Woodmere, and our main store located in Gretna. Uniforms by Logo Express. Your brand starts here.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
The bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Oh, good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to a Hall of Fame edition of Primetime Sports. I cannot wait for this show, but what a weekend we had. We've been waiting for it. This was the great weekend, the greatest we've had all fall of football. Hey, it was college on Saturday. They had tons of close games and upsets. They were extraordinary. You had the number 2, 3, 4, 8, 9 teams all lost in the college football playoff top 10, and even a couple others that were in the top 20. It was fantastic. But then on Sunday, hey, the NFL didn't let us down either. Hey, that was one of the best or worst weekends, in case if you're worried about the Saints, that we've seen right here. It was in the Superdome on Sunday. That game, well, it's been all over the highlights, all over nationally. But I'm going to say that. Everyone billed this as, hey, Drew Brees versus Denver's vaunted defense. You know that defense that won them a Super Bowl last season? Well, they might have been down a player, Aqib Talib, and a couple other guys that have defected, but they are still one of the best in the entire league. But this game did not disappoint. I got to say this, Drew Brees came in here. Hey, he had a slow start, but he ended strong. 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards passing, including a great one. And, in fact, a miracle pass to Brandon Cooks at the end of the game that you would have thought had won it, but it didn't. But before we get to that, I got to say, Denver's defense, they forced 4 turnovers in this game, and I think they might have put number 26, Darian Stewart, into the Pro Bowl. He had 2 interceptions, and then he had a fumble recovery that popped out of Michael Thomas's hands. You see Ingram trying to tackle him there, but he had a fantastic game. But this game is going to be remembered for one play only, and that was at the end of the game. After that touchdown to Cooks, hey, it's a minute left. All you think there's an extra point that's going to happen? Well, not so fast. They had a block. Obviously, you know it by now. They jumped over the center, they blocked it, and then they returned it all the way. But the big point of the question is, was he in bounds? You see, that's been the talk, and lack of a sideline camera to make it definitive whether he was in or out cost the Saints, and they are now 4-5 instead of over 500 for the first time this season. Hey, we're going to get into that. I have a lot of guests talking about the Saints and other stuff today, but I have to talk about the boys in Baton Rouge. Hey, they recovered nicely from their Alabama hangover by throttling the Arkansas Razorbacks 38-10 up there in Fayetteville. Hey, the Hogs had not beaten LSU twice in a row. Well, they've just gotten beat twice in a row in the last couple of years, but not this time. Hey, Ed Ogeron, well, he had his team ready to play this year. Hey, Leonard Fournette came in. He got 3 touchdowns early and 100 yards. But guess what? His backup did even better. Darius Geis came in, and he got 252 yards and 2 touchdowns. And oh, by the way, if this game had been played a month ago, that would be the greatest all-time yardage game in LSU history. Of course, Fournette against Ole Miss had 284. But Darius Geis and Fournette, what a What a backfield duo. Hey, other fantastic games in college. We're going to get into this with one of my guests, Jeff Duncan, later. But Michigan and Iowa. How about that? The number 3 team lost the last-second field goal to the Iowa Hawkeyes. A night game up there in Iowa City. What a fantastic finish. Harbaugh has his first loss of the season. How about number 2, Clemson? Well, they had a game at home. Both Michigan and Clemson were over 20-point favorites. Pitt came in and beat them once again on a last-second field goal. They won at the end of the game, 43-42. What a fantastic finish that was. And then number 4, Washington, another top 4 undefeated team, lost to USC, who's been playing some great football lately. Auburn and A&M also were in the bottom half of the top 10. They also lost this weekend. We're going to get into all that. I can't wait. Hey, the pros, like I mentioned earlier, it was the best week of the season as far as games. Everybody's been talking about lack of, fan participation. The ratings are all down. But I tell you what, this weekend picked it up big time. Let's talk about the conference rivals. Hey, when the Saints lost that, the first thing I did was to see if the Falcons and Carolina Panthers hung on to their games because they were both leading the whole way. The Falcons against the Eagles up there in Philly, well, they ended up losing at that one at the very end. Ryan Matthews had a career game for the Eagles. So the Saints did not lose ground, but more importantly now, they didn't gain it either. Hey, how about the Panthers? They led most of this game. It was 17-3 going into the fourth quarter. Heck, the Saints have lost 2 touchdown leads. Remember the Raiders game? Well, the Panthers were susceptible to it as well this weekend, and they lost to the Chiefs. And how about the hometown boy? The guy from Brazil, the kicker, the former Luke Rosa Award winner here at Tulane? Well, Cairo Santos got the game-winning field goal, and everybody in New Orleans is thanking him. And oh, by the way, the Saints play the Panthers this Thursday night. So if you're watching the replay, it's going to be coming on as you're watching it. But tonight is Tuesday, so 2 nights away, so get ready for that game. And oh, by the way, there's some other great games. The Cowboys and Steelers. Hey, Ben Roethlisberger did a Dan Marino. He faked the spike and ends up getting a touchdown pass with 44 seconds. But then the Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott, the runaway leader right now for Rookie of the Year and maybe even in the running for MVP. Well, he had a 60-plus yard run to win the game against the Steelers, and the Cowboys are now 8-1 and certainly one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to go to the Super Bowl of the NFC. And how about the rematch from 2 years ago's Super Bowl? You remember that play when Malcolm Butler intercepted Russell Wilson at the end zone, when everybody said they should have run it with Marshawn Lynch? Well, Seattle got their revenge in New England. How sweet it was. It came down to the last play of the game. Gronkowski, one-on-one with Cam Chancellor, and they ended up losing it 31-24. You see that play. People in New England said it should have been interference. Everybody else said, great, no call. But what a fantastic weekend of football. And by the way, if you are an Odell Beckham fan, he made some news last night. This is pretty incredible. He is the fastest NFL wide receiver to get to 3,500 yards. The former Newman graduate and, of course, LSU player. Congratulations to him. He is having another great season after a slow start. Hey, and by the way, if you're a basketball fan, I have some good news to report. Your New Orleans Pelicans, they finally won their first game of the season last week against the Milwaukee Bucks on the road. And last night, they treated you to their first home victory, 106-105. They had a 14-point lead, and they let it go, and they ended up winning it by 1. But congrats to them, and hopefully with Drew Holiday coming back, hopefully on Friday, well, they can get this thing starting to get it turned around. At least they weren't 1-11 like last season, but 2-9, you still have a big hole you have to fill. I cannot wait for this show. I talked about Hall of Fame show, and I wasn't kidding. I have Deuce McAllister. We all know him here, one of the most beloved Saints of all time. He's in at least 5, and it might be up to 7 Hall of Fames. I lost count after a while. He's going to be on this show. And another guy that's in the Louisiana Hall of Fame with him, head coach J.T. Curtis from John Curtis. The playoffs are going on right now. They have a big game on Friday. I cannot wait to talk to him. He is a legend. Number 2 all-time nationally in high school football wins, and he's just an all-around great guy. So look forward to having J.T. And another great guy, Andy Cannizaro. Well, he's in the Tulane Hall of Fame. He's probably in a few others as well. He's a Yankee for a long time. He was the LSU hitting coach in the last 2 years, but he is the brand new coach of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So he's going to be joining us from Starkville. I look forward to talking to Andy, one of the great guys, and I guarantee you he's going to be known eventually as one of the greatest coaches of all time as well. Hey, and that's not it. I've got Jeff Duncan. He's a Hall of Famer to me, and I've said this when I had my radio show many times. I think he is one of the greatest columnists that the Crescent City has ever seen. I'm looking forward to talking to him about the Saints, the LSU Tigers, the Pelicans, and how about the whole college and NFL landscape. That's all coming up next for you right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back, Crescent City. I told you this was going to be a fantastic show, and I cannot wait. A lot of Hall of Famers on this one, but one of my next guests is one of the most beloved in Saints history. Saints Hall of Fame, Ole Miss Hall of Fame, the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, Sugar Bowl Hall of Fame, the Mississippi State Hall of Fame. He's probably got about 5 others I don't even know. You know him, no introduction needed. His name is Deuce McAllister, and now he is a broadcaster with Jim Henderson on WWL, so he goes from player to TV. So you're on the dark side now, huh?
They call it the dark side, and so it's a work in progress, but I enjoy doing it. I definitely enjoy it.
First question is, did you think that you were going to do this as a player? Because a lot of people try to plan their career afterward, and some get into business. But I know you're a businessman as well. Did you ever think you were going to be a Saints broadcaster?
I really probably avoided it for the longest, particularly the media side. I've always done some different stuff with Cox Sports, just breaking down some of the games, et cetera. But just to be able to go full bore in it with WWL and the radio and just following it, I really enjoy it. And it brings you back into the sport. And, I don't have the itch as far as to go out there and play or anything like that.
When did that end, though?
The only time you really get it is playoff times.
All right.
So when you're close to that playoff time, when you think you can make a difference, then you may get it. But other than that, I don't miss that.
How many of these players remember you? That I'm always curious about because, players we forget how young most of them are in their early 20s. Do you get the vast majority remember you? Or are there any a few that are like, what's your name again?
Well, you've got the Madden guys, and so the guys that play the video games, they'll remember you. But there's probably still a couple. You've got Jari that I played with, and obviously Drew. And so there's still a couple that you played with, and I'm always around, so you see them enough.
And they're letting everybody know how great you are.
Yeah, well, that doesn't matter to me, on that part of it.
Most yards in Saints history. He's a humble man. If you haven't noticed that, I'm going to tell you right now. Definitely one of the most humble superstars I've ever known. But the fact is like when you played on some decent Saints teams, they were never really bad in the early 2000s. People keep forgetting that they were never worse than 7-9 during that whole era. But then at the end of your career, you got to go to the Super Bowl. Okay, you're on the team, you were hurt. But what was it like not only winning the Super Bowl, because you were on the show back in February, I didn't get into all this, but more importantly, like when you're on that float, and it happened to be during Mardi Gras when the Saints had their victory parade for the Super Bowl. What were the flood of emotions going through you at that time?
Well, just to see, the people, the amount of people, and, me and Jeremy Shockey, we're on the same float. And if you know Jeremy loves to hang out and
He was
party.
having a good time.
He was having a really good time. And so me and him are on that float just talking about it, taking it all in, and, just to see the amount of people and just to see the tears and the emotions and excitement, it's a moment that you'll never forget, and for me, we were decent. We didn't have the best of records when I was playing, but to be able to experience.
But always right there.
You were right there.
Always right there.
You were right there, but, I only truly got to go and perform in the playoffs once, and that was in 2006.
Right.
The first 4 or 5 years of my career, we had never been in the playoffs. And so for me to be able to experience the Super Bowl run, I told them, hey, look, if it's being the best water boy, if it's being the best, equipment guy, and just an extra set of eyes and ears, that's what I was going to do.
Another thing I want to get in last time I had you, but I didn't get to because we ran out of time, but I want to do it now. You mentioned 2006. Obviously, that's the year that Peyton and Drew Brees came to New Orleans. But also, that was the year after Katrina. And you grew up in small-town Mississippi, not far from New Orleans. But there's a picture I remember, I think it was in Sporting News, that you were on the cover, and Saints Among the Ruins. Talk about you, the person, and, you viewing the city after this and all the things that you did for it and your emotions during that time.
Let's say Katrina hit that Monday,
right?
And we were over in Oakland, played a game that previous Thursday, And so we played against the Raiders. So we went to San Antonio as far as just the headquarters to see what was next.
Right.
And the images that we get from watching Fox and CNN and some other stations, well, there's a levee breach, and so, this is starting to happen as far as you had the storm to come in, but now there's flooding starting to occur. I had the opportunity with Sporting News and the USA Today to come back to the city that Thursday.
Wow.
And some of the first things, we were with the rescue crews. There were still people being rescued off of homes.
Yeah.
You go up on the bridge, 10, and you look down Canal and you just see nothing but water. And, I remember having this conversation with a gentleman that was in an old building that's been torn down now for Veterans Hospital was, he didn't want to be rescued. He wanted to stay there. He wanted a Sunday's paper. Wow. I'm saying like, well, maybe if you come down, we can get you a Sunday's paper, but you gotta go. We don't know when there'll be water. We don't know when there'll be power.
Wow.
But he didn't want to leave. And to see those images, and for me to be able to help and give back. Remember partnering with Brett Favre, Steve McNair, some of the Mississippi guys, where we got just some trailer fulls of toiletries. Some of it was tissue. Some of it was just going to the shelters, a hot meal. A lot of people hadn't had that opportunity. And so any way that we could put a smile on their face, that's what we tried to do.
Well, for those of you who don't know, he's involved in a lot of charities. You saw a picture there with a young girl. And that's the thing. He's not the kind of guy that wants to put it out there, but he is involved and loves his city of New Orleans. You mentioned Brett Favre. You mentioned Steve McNair, Mississippi boys themselves, played at Southern Miss and Alcorn State. You decided to go to Ole Miss, and you're a Hall of Famer there. I remember your career because I featured you on a show out of Atlanta, and I had, talking about your high school exploits. But you got to Ole Miss. Here's a shot against LSU. Talk about that career and what it means for you to be a Rebel, because I know you're proud, hotty toddy. I mean, we were together 2 years ago during the LSU Ole Miss game. So talk about your career.
Well, for me, I was almost a linebacker, which when you think about it, never really, my coach, Tommy Tuberville, really never saw me as a running back, and I just told him, Coach, when you recruited me, you told me I'd get a chance at least at running back. I felt like that if I could touch it, I could be something special. But, he always saw me as he was a linebacker coach down at Miami when they had Ray Lewis, when they had Darren. We had him here for a little while. He was an outside backer. He was one of the fastest linebackers.
At Miami?
Yeah, at Miami. Played for the Cowboys for a long time. But anyway, he saw, we had Armstead. Right. He saw me as one of those linebackers. I said, Coach, I don't mind tackling, but I want to run it. If I can just touch it, that's what I want to do. So we went back for about 3, 4, 5 days, maybe even a week, of me being a running back, a linebacker.
Back in your freshman summer practice?
Yeah, my freshman year. All right. During tour days. I mean, we had just literally got there. The reason and the way I stayed at running back was because John Avery, our senior tailback,
great player,
who ended up getting drafted by the Miami Dolphins as a first rounder, twisted his ankle. And so we were short of numbers. And I got to stay at running back for about 3 or 4 days, and that's when he ended up leaving me over there.
You and Avery, actually, the more I think about it, it's kind of a version of Fournette and Geist. I mean, he's a Geist-type player. You're a Fournette-type player.
That's exactly
I think it worked out kind of nicely.
I think so. So
you would have been a good linebacker, but you're a superstar at running back. The culmination of a career, the stamp of approval, is when you get into the Saints, your team's Hall of Fame. I mean, that's when you're like, wow, I made this. And I don't think it was unexpected by any of the following career. But once again, I want to feel how you felt when you got that call and then the day you got inducted.
It's always about the other guys for me. I mean, because without those offensive linemen, without your tight end, without your fullback, then you can't go out and do what you do. So, you talk about LaCharles Bentley, you talk about a Jerry Fontenot, you talk about a Vic Riley, you talk about a Kyle Turley.
Sure.
You talk about I only played a short while with Willie Rofe, but those guys made it easy for me. And so the Mike Carneys, the Moran Norrises, the Terrell Smiths, without them being successful, then I don't be successful. And so for me to be able to go into a Hall of Fame, my hat really goes off to them, because I know that they were a big reason and part of it.
You mentioned two guys that one of them I just talked to last week, Kyle Turley. He says he and Terrell Smith still hang out over there in Riverside, California. But as far as going there, your broadcasting career is what's happening now. And you're good friends with Hokie Guyjon, who obviously passed away a few months ago. You replaced him for some games last year because obviously he was going through his cancer. But what's it like now? You with Jim Henderson, who is considered, he is the bell cow guy. I mean, he's the standard bearer. And I've been listening to the games, and it's been phenomenal. But you knew Hokie. What was it like replacing him?
Well, when I originally did it last year, just subbing in, and I knew that it was Hokie's gig.
Right.
Never had the thought or mindset that I would eventually take over. So you definitely send your condolences because of the way it happened and what happened. And now you're really not feeling your way through, but really just want to be yourself and make sure that you deliver a product that people can respect and understand. Jim Rake makes it really easy. And so for me, it's just really going out and talking football, talking sports, telling people about the game, what I see, and giving some strategy, but not overbearing with, terminology as far as football. You want to give some of it, but not, a lot of people trips right, 357, LY, past 130. Those are plays that are in the playbooks. I can tell, hey, look, Drew is checking here. He doesn't like how the safety is coming down on one side.
I'm noticing.
He doesn't like how the safety is coming down on one side. So he goes to a check. The offensive line, everybody is going to go left. It's going to be a gap protection, and the running back is responsible for off the tight end. You can understand that.
Right.
But if I just tell you that's jet protection, that's jet protection. Running back has 1 or 2 on the outside, then that's not what you necessarily pick up automatically. So I enjoy it, and it's just trying to give little pieces.
And you do a great job of relating. I mean, when John Smoltz did the World Series, I was like, this guy is going to be one of the best because he can relate and tells us stuff we don't know. Right. And I feel the same about you. And I'm not saying that because you're sitting here. I tell people when I'm listening, I'm usually at the home games, but the road game, I'm always listening. But as far as home games that I listened a little bit this week, I went to the game. I only had 2 hours sleep because I had to fly back for my college football game I worked on Saturday night. But I got back and went to the game, and I was like, they fumbled with about 2.5 minutes. So I'm like, you know what? I need some sleep. I'm going to get out, listen to the rest of the car. Hopefully they'll come back. So obviously Denver had kicked the field goal to go up 6. And then Jim Henderson with the call with Brooks' touchdown, and then we know what happened next with a blocked extra point. I want to get your take on this because you painted this picture like Vince Scully would do in baseball. It was that clear because you told me about the white cleat and then touching the sideline, and I was just like, I could picture what was happening, and then you're like, he's definitely out of bounds, but Jim, I'm not positive we're going to get this call because is it conclusive enough? So go through this whole process for me.
Well, one, you had a couple things obviously that happened. To be able to catch the touchdown was phenomenal. And so you're on this emotional high. Everybody's celebrating. You're going to go up 1, and, you feel like that you'll win this game in the end. Well, Denver had prepared this whole week of if the opportunity comes, we're going to leap over the center. And so what they do, they have 2 guys there. You can't be blocking. No one can line up over the snapper. And so that's the rule. You have 2 referees in the back that look to see. The next thing that happens is, their leaper has to be able to time it. So anytime that the Saints kick the extra point, anytime that they kick a field goal, he's listening to the call. And so the Saints never change that. That's one thing that you'll probably see them do, more teams do as far as changing their snap counts and their cadence. The other part of it which was interesting, is the guy that didn't line up, but he was right next to the center, he comes in and he kind of pushes and pulls your snapper.
Well, push is legal, but pull's not, right?
Push is legal.
I just learned that this weekend.
But it's going to always be a judgment call from that referee. I mean, because if you don't snatch him automatically away, he's probably not going to call it. But you can't tell me that a guy can't raise up just from somebody pushing him down.
Absolutely.
Drescher's still a pretty good athlete, so just because he snapped it, he's not going to allow a guy just to push him down, knowing that he possibly has a leaper coming over him. I mean, and so you had all of this to unfold. The next part of it, once they do block it, well, there are not really a lot of fast guys on your field goal teams. We
saw that in the Alabama-Auburn game, right?
Correct. And so you've got this convoy that's going up the sideline, but really, I never understand why Parks squeezes himself so close to the sideline. I mean, because he squeezes himself all the way where he makes it a judgment call.
He said he did ballet back in 4th grade. So
even with ballet, even with ballet. He squeezes himself, not really because anyone is close. I mean, the next closest guy is about 5 to 7 yards.
Exactly.
So he gives the impression, I'm going to run right up this sideline. Well, by doing so, he probably touches that line for sure probably once, but the other time it's probably not as close. Well, the problem becomes whatever call they make on the field, they want to stick with it. I mean, because the worst thing that they can do is say, hey, look, we're going to have to change a referee's call, particularly from New York or going into the booth. So if we don't call it out of bounds, then I don't see enough evidence to be able to flip it. And another thing that I learned, they only go off of one monitor. They don't use 3 different views at once.
That's crazy.
It's
just crazy to me.
And so if it looks this way on this view, I can't go back and say, well, give me all 3 views on one monitor. They don't do that. It's just one view from a monitor. And so by giving it that and having that understanding, that's why they couldn't change.
Well, the range of emotions that the Saints have put us through this season alone, I mean, how close are we to 7-2? Yeah. But I remember you were in a play very similar to sign the ball, the River City Relay. I mean, it's the first thing I thought of because obviously the greatest play, all the laterals, and you were involved in that play, and they get the touchdown, and John Carney misses the extra point, first in his career. By the way, as you're signing that, I got a couple great gifts because I know you work out. 4 free ones at the greatest full-body workout you'll ever see. The Orange Place there in Mid-City. It's phenomenal. Check that out. And then a great wine bistro up there in Uptown New Orleans. So check it out. Deuce, I love you, man. I enjoyed doing radio shows from your restaurant for a couple of years there. And listen, we're all very proud of what you do, and we're very thankful to have you in all of our lives. Okay?
No problem. Thank you.
Deuce McAllister right there. Hey, I'm not done with the Hall of Famers. I've got a few more coming up. Hey, next, we're going to have Jeff Duncan. He is with the Times-Picayune. He's a columnist here in New Orleans. Of course, he writes about the Saints, but he covers pretty much everything around, including things outside of our area, like the Kentucky Derby, etc. So, and later in the show, J.T. Curtis, the second winningest all-time high school football head coach in this country. And then also, don't forget, Andy Cannizaro. Hey, by the way, 2-time All-American at Tulane, and he played for the Yankees. He is now Mississippi State's new head coach. That's all coming up right here on Primetime Sports.
The mark of Legacy Kitchen is simple. We offer numerous dishes like chicken enchilada soup, prime filet and loaded baked potato, baby back ribs, and so much more. At Legacy Kitchen, we serve American fare, crafted cocktails, and we offer a great selection of wines by the glass. Metairie at Betts and Martin Berman, and in the Warehouse District at Tchoupitoulas and Girard.
I burned for health.
For never being big again.
I burned for my family.
For my 10th high school reunion.
For swimsuit season. I burned for myself.
Orange Theory Fitness. Keep burning.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Welcome back, New Orleans. I want to thank Deuce McAllister. It's always great running into him, and what a treasure we have here in New Orleans. Hey, he may be a sports treasure, but I have a treasure sitting next to me that I can't wait to get his columns every day. And he didn't believe me when I said that when he was on the radio show, but I believe he's one of the best columnists, sports writers this town has ever seen. His name is Jeff Duncan. You know him well. He's been with the Times-Picayune for 17 years. Time flies, doesn't it?
Man, I can remember when I just moved to town.
What was going on here then?
It seems like just yesterday. Well, I can tell you my first job at the Picayune was covering LSU sports in 1999. That was Jerry DiNardo's last year. And we all knew there was a black cloud hanging over that season. We all knew there was probably going to be a coaching change. And here we are again with another coaching change at LSU. So, yeah, I can remember those days vividly.
Well, I mean, it's funny you bring up DiNardo because he could have been the governor of Louisiana literally when 98 started because he kind of brought them back and they were number 4 or 5 in the country, and all of a sudden they lost close game after close game. They went 3-8, and after 99 he was done. But speaking of LSU, we'll just go right there because I was going to start Saints first, but why not LSU? Big coaching change recently, obviously, with Ed Orgeron coming in and replacing Les Miles. What's your take on this situation? Because I was watching the game that night, and I was in my hotel room out of town, and I'm like, why do these announcers keep saying he's got no chance to get the job? Are you in agreement with that?
No, not at all. Matter of fact, I would have thought that the first week or so, or when he was given the interim job. But I think there's been a groundswell of grassroots support, and I think the players, the way they've responded to him, the moves he's made. I mean, he really hasn't done very much of anything wrong. I mean, I know people wanted him to beat Alabama, but I think it was expected they weren't going to win that game. If he runs the table, I think he's got a really strong shot, provided one of their big targets is not available and they can't get him. And when I talk about their big targets, Scott, I'm thinking Jimbo Fisher and Tom Herman. I think it's those two, and if they don't get them, then Ed Ogeron is a viable candidate.
I'm going to say this, because I would have thought when it first happened that he took over that those would have been the obvious choices. But Florida State's not had a great year. It's funny, what have you done for me lately? We know Jimbo can coach. Love Jimbo. Did a great job here at LSU as the offensive coordinator. But it's funny, since Ogeron's been coaching, Houston's not done very well either. So has any of that luster gone off of Tom Herman?
Well, it's funny. I wrote a column saying that that's the guy they need to go for, and then a few days later he loses to Navy. Yeah. So I'm the kiss of death.
Almost lost to UCF, who was winless the year before.
It was unbelievable. I mean, my timing could not have been worse. But I don't think you make a decision this big and worry about the short term. You're not thinking about what's happened in the last week or two. You're looking at a long-term vision of who's going to build the program and keep it at elite level, and who can stand toe-to-toe with Alabama, frankly. I mean, that's the concern, I think, in Baton Rouge. I'm not sure there is somebody, Scott, that can stand toe-to-toe with Alabama right now. It's the greatest dynasty in modern college football. But they've got to find somebody that can at least keep them competitive, and I think those two guys give them a great opportunity to do that. Can they lure them to Baton Rouge? I don't know. That's where the big money power brokers have to step in and see if they can make that call. But I do think if they don't get either one of those two, I think Coach O becomes a very viable candidate. But here's the problem you might have with Coach O. If you are a power broker there deciding on this long-term vision, what if Tom Herman gets the job at Texas?
Right.
And what if he lures Dave Aranda away because they used to be college roommates? All of a sudden now you're starting from scratch, and that's where Ed Ogeron, I think you have a question.
That's a great point.
Can he put together a staff? And I think in the back of everybody's mind was that resume he had at Ole Miss, where the program actually got worse each year he was there. I think that still sticks out.
I like to think that he's improved with age. I mean, he got that job because he was such a great recruiter, and Ole Miss was coming from, not a whole lot. They had the Manning years, Eli, but they hadn't done a whole lot in the previous couple of decades. So personally, I think like most of Louisiana folks, he kind of fits. So we hope. But let's talk about this team, because LSU has played good football. I mean, you take away that fourth quarter in Alabama, I think those other 19 quarters since he's been the head coach, pretty close to flawless. You have one of the best backfields that I've seen in a long time. I'm talking about Darius Geis and Leonard Fournette. Talk about that two-headed monster.
Well, look, I mean, Leonard Fournette we all know about. I mean, he's the best running back in college football, probably the best running back in the history of the program. But to have another guy like Geis who steps in and gives you a little change of pace, LSU's never had, I think, a combination like that. Reminds me of those old Saints backfields with Reuben Mays
and Dalton
Hilliard.
Correct.
Kind of a 1-2 punch. They complement each other. And credit Steve Ensminger, the offensive coordinator, and Ed Ogeron for utilizing their strength right now. I mean, I know they've got good players on the perimeter, but their passing game's not elite. Danny Etling's not an elite quarterback. Let's lean on these guys. If they could get better up front in the offensive line, they would be very difficult to beat. That's what I think got exposed.
Bigger, against a team like Alabama.
Got exposed.
I had this discussion, though, with somebody recently about Fournette and Geis, and I said, well, maybe on the college level, Fournette and, Kevin Falk and Cecil Collins, and they even had Rondo Mealy play, was pretty close. But I agree. These two are special. I think Geis might be a Giovanni Bernard type in the NFL, and then Fournette, he's got Adrian Peterson type ceiling, in my opinion.
All right. They'll both play on Sundays, no question.
No doubt about that. Hey, speaking of the Sundays, let's talk about the Saints, because this team, a lot of people are leaving them for dead at 0-3, right? But if you looked at a couple of those games, it's been a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda over the last few years. They lost that close one with the Raiders to start. Obviously, you had the Giants loss, which was heartbreaking. But they won 4 of the next 5 and given the city some hope. And they played pretty well for the most part against a really good, rugged Denver team. Where does this team stand in your mind right now?
Well, they've got a critical stretch coming up. They're 4-5, but they're still in it, largely because Atlanta has not run away with the NFC South. They're 6-4. But I think this is almost a must-win game this week against Carolina. A team that itself was kind of working its way back into contention and then suffered very similarly a heartbreaking loss at home. I mean, you give up a 17-point lead.
I mean, that's
at
tough.
home. That's tough.
I don't feel sorry for them, though.
I don't know how they. I don't know how they're going to bounce back, Scott. I mean, I think they're going to have a harder time bouncing back than the Saints will. And I feel like the Saints, if you're in the locker room right now and you're talking to Sean Payton, they're very confident. They know they're playing very well. I mean, that was a good team that they stood toe-to-toe with the other day. We saw Seattle go to New England and beat New England in their house on Sunday night, and this is a team the Saints beat. Really, they're playing as well as anybody in the league.
I agree.
You
You made a great point about Peyton, because I was listening to his press conference in the car on the way back, and I was remarking that I said, you know what, this isn't like angry Peyton.
Right.
It's a confident Peyton. He doesn't like to lose. We know that, but it's not like that resignation we had seen, that he was just testy about everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you notice that? Because you were there.
No doubt. Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Look, they're playing smart football. They're not committing a lot of the penalties that hindered them earlier in the year. Yes, they had some turnovers, but some of those were forced by a great Denver defense. You can live with those aggressive plays. But they're also, I think, got things together offensively. They're running the ball better. The passing attack is as good as it's ever been. Breeze is playing at an elite level, and the defense is getting healthier. And they're not beating themselves. They're starting to make a few plays. I mean, 6 sacks.
That was the next thing.
It's incredible, right?
6 sacks, by the way. It took like a year to get 6 sacks a couple years ago.
Right.
But Nick Fairley, I mean, guys are coming in, even Sheldon Rankins, coming in and giving them a boost. They're getting it from people that you weren't sure about before the season, and it's starting to pay off now.
Yeah, well, you get Sheldon Rankins back. He has kind of a domino effect on the inside. When you have Rankins, Cam Jordan, and Nick Fairley rushing the passer, which is the 3-man line they go to in passing situations, it allows Dennis Allen to be much more creative with his blitz packages. And we saw that. He threw the house at Denver's pretty much feeble offensive line. That's another thing. They weren't very good up front. But
it's kind of shocking when you put Denver and bad offensive lines together. I mean, but you're right. They weren't very good.
They're not very good. And the other thing is having Delvin Breaux at corner gives him more confidence that they're going to hold up on the back end so that he can be more aggressive up front. I think we saw that. That's what I think we're going to see the rest of the year. Now, whether they have that same kind of success against a good Carolina offensive line remains to be seen.
I love the domino effect comment, because people don't realize that, hey, one guy can actually make 2 guys better than they were without him, because he forces people on them. The big part of this defense has also been, besides the pass rush, because we know what happened when Allen was the defensive coordinator, or he was the secondary coach back when they won the Super Bowl. Opportunistic, and you're seeing that. We haven't seen, speaking of sacks, but we hadn't seen a lot of turnovers until recently, and they're getting those too. And I think one of the big reasons is, we mentioned Cam Jordan. I think he's the MVP of the defense, but I would go co-MVP with a guy named Kenny Vaccaro, right?
Right.
He's been playing great. When he's not in, you can tell. He's playing like his rookie season, except with some seasoning. What's the take on him on the inside about this possible 4-game suspension for Adderall?
Well, I think he's going to have a hard time fighting that. I mean, it's just very difficult once you test positive or something like that. I mean, he can go through the appeal process and perhaps stave it off for a game or two. Maybe pick a spot in the schedule where you think you're
Tampa
you're
twice,
gonna
maybe.
But that's one area I would say, Scott, that they're pretty deep at. They got Von Bell, the young kid who's playing very well. Jarrisburg's playing a lot better. So they can afford to lose Kenny Vaccaro, I think, more than, say, a Cam Jordan
no
now,
doubt.
just because they've got a little better depth there.
But with Eric Harris out too,
player.
though, I mean, what kind of depth will you have at safety? Or can you slide a corner over there? I mean,
they can mix and match around. That's Dennis Allen's background, and that's his strength. And look, they're getting much better play at the second level at linebacker. And Kenny Vaccaro, in essence, is more like a linebacker these days. I could see them playing Roman Harper in that role. And he's been around enough. He's not the greatest player in the world at this stage of his career, but he knows how to play as a smart guy.
Good point. Hey, what's your gut telling you for the rest of the season? Fans want to know. They know you're knowledgeable.
Well,
what do you think?
I mean, look, they play in so many 50-50 games. How do you predict?
Every game.
How do you predict
the
it?
fans are getting their money's worth.
But how do you predict, a team where it comes down to what happened on Sunday? They could have won that game or lost that game against the Broncos just as easily. Could have won it. So it's very difficult, I think, to predict how this thing goes. But I like where they're headed, and I really like next season's prospects. And I don't want to be that Saints, wait till next year.
Wait till next year, we get them.
But they look like a team on the upswing with some of these young players on the roster. And the way Breeze is playing, he's showing no signs of slowing down.
Hey, as you sign the ball, I want to tell you something real quick, because you're a Louisville guy. I mean, proud Louisville graduate. Sure. You have a guy that is unlike anybody I've really maybe ever seen in college football. I mean, we've seen guys like Vince Young.
Thank you.
But Talk about Lamar Jackson and what he means for this Louisville program, because he is one of the few guys that I would pay to watch.
Well, I tell you, he's been a godsend, for the program. I remember when they brought him in, he was a pretty highly rated recruit. Out of
Florida, maybe?
Yeah, out of Miami area,
right.
Replacing Teddy Bridgewater. I think about it all the time. If you're a Florida fan, you've got to be wondering what the heck is going on with Louisville getting Teddy Bridgewater and now Lamar Jackson. And we don't have a quarterback. So I think that the Louisville ability to recruit down there and his ability to run with the football, I've never seen a player as dynamic, maybe since Michael Vick, with running and speed.
Actually, great call on Michael Vick. He's got an even bigger body, though. Anyway, thank you, Jeff. I really do appreciate you coming on. I can't believe it's the first time I've had you, but definitely be on again in the future. But, hey, it's already been a great show, but I cannot wait for the rest of it. Andy Cannizaro, one of my all-time favorites. I was a Tulane bat boy back in the day. Not when he played, but he obviously two-time All-American, and he played with the Yankees, and he was LSU's hitting coach, but he is a new coach of Mississippi State. Well, he and J.T. Curtis are coming up next right here on Primetime Sports. All right, welcome back, Crescent City. Hey, we had a Hall of Famer with Deuce McAllister. Heck, he said he's been in 7, but he doesn't even know if it's even more than that. I know another guy right here sitting next to me. Well, he's in the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame as well. He's got over 550 high school football wins. That's second nationally to a guy named John McKissick in Summerville, South Carolina. But the thing about McKissick, because I knew him as well when I lived in Atlanta, I did a feature on one of his players. He looked like he'd been coaching for 60-something years. J.T. Curtis, as you'll see in a second, looks like he could still suit it up. What's up, Coach?
It's good to see you, Scott.
So much. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Before I get into the coaching and fun with Curtis and the 26 state championships, et cetera, you also have another side gig that's pretty fun, too. For 25 years, you and Ed Daniels have been hooking it up together on Friday Night Football on Friday nights after your games.
We really have. It started in 1992, and there wasn't a lot of prep coverage at that time going on, to be honest with you. It's one of the reasons we thought it was important to get involved. We thought that young people's parents, grandparents, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles want to see their kids. So we decided at that point to start the program along with Paula Pendarvis. Paula was the executive producer, and she said, "Well, this is all I have, but if you can do it for this, then we'll give it a shot." And 25 years later, it's been history, and it's just flown by. The kids are great to be with, and it's been really enjoyable for both of us. Ed is such a professional at what he does. He really is,
yeah.
And I really enjoy being a part of it.
Well, there's people that are, flattery, obviously, imitation is best form of flattery. Well, you got other shows trying to compete against you now. Back in the day, my heart's in college football. Loved it. Used to do a show for years in Atlanta. I actually called the games on the Cox 4 game of the week a couple years ago with Marlon Favorite. Mm-hmm. I love it. So I love what you're doing, not only on the football field, but covering all the other teams. And you're one of the most unbiased guys I've ever heard. I mean, it's kind of fun to listen to you because I'm like, golly, if I was a coach, I'd be like, damn, my team's a lot better than this one. But as far as a coach, you started in 1969. What, you like, 7, 8 years old?
Yeah, I was a little older than that. I was right out of college.
But think about it, 69.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. There's no question. And the kids asked me, "Coach, did y'all play with face masks?" So then I just say, "Start running, boys. Just start running." Yeah. And but really, it was a real challenge that first year, as we talked about it. Went 0-10 and scored 2 touchdowns. Remember them both.
And the whole season.
The whole season.
Yeah,
whole season.
Right.
And we're able to grow the program from there. And a lot of people don't realize that. They just look at the last few years and think, well, this has always been. But it's like anything else. You've got to have great support. You got to have people that are willing to buy into what you're trying to get accomplished. And you got to have parents that are willing to sacrifice their time and to let you have their sons in order to groom them and develop them, not only as football players, but more importantly as young men.
Yeah, and I think you do a phenomenal job at that. I mean, that's the most important thing. That's why they play football, to learn, and it's a teaching method as well.
It's especially true in high school, Scott. I tell people all the time, look, if the only thing in high school football at the end of the day is a score, it's not worth it. I'll be honest with you. It's not worth the energy and the time that I ask our coaches to put in. It's not worth the money that you have to invest into a program. There has to be those intrinsic values that help a young man, and in the case of women's athletics, young women become better people. learn how to overcome adversity, learn how to sustain through the difficult times, and then learn how to win and win humbly and move on to the next challenge.
I can say this unequivocally: your brand has been out there because, like I said, I was in Atlanta doing a show that covered the greatest players at the time in high school football. And John Curtis is known not just locally or around the state; it's national. And this is even way before your 2012 undisputed national championship with USA Today. I'm even talking even before the 5 straight state titles back in the early 2000s. It's been around in the 90s. People like, oh, you're from New Orleans. You like high school. How about that Curtis team? So how does that make you feel? 26 state titles. I mean, when you hear stuff like that.
Well, first of all, you got to be very appreciative. And my wife and I were talking just a few weeks ago, and she said, people ask me that question, like, is this what you planned? And it really wasn't. There was no grand plan to say we were going to be state champions these many times. It was day by day, week by week, and then year by year. And the objective is to try to be the best that we can be and to challenge our young people to be the best that they can be, and then provide them with the tools that they need from a coaching standpoint, from a physical standpoint, to give them an opportunity to be successful.
Well, I was telling you earlier, I'm an uptown kid. I grew up uptown, although I live in River Ridge now, about you. But I actually, for a year, I went to the John Curtis Day Camp. I had the summer of my life. But my first memories of you guys, like really football-wise, when I was old enough to, was when you had like Dubrock. And then you had Dupart, and then and a guy that I've gotten to know well, Michael Stonebreaker. I mean, you had some ballers back then. What are some of your fondest memories with teams? I know you don't want to play favorites, but what sticks out to you?
Those were great teams. Certainly when Reggie was a senior, I'll tell you a quick story. We were in a sideline conference about what we were going to do, what play we were going to call at a big point in the ball game, and my brother Leon got on the headset and he said, "Look, I don't care what y'all call, but just give it to Dupart, okay?" And
was
that
he
was
21?
probably yeah.
I can't believe I remember that.
Yeah,
he played with the Patriots,
and he's doing great, by the way. He came in last year and spoke to our seniors.
Looks great too.
He does. He really
right.
does. He came in for the SMU Tulane game, and of course graduated from SMU and has been really successful. The '85 Stonebreaker team was an awfully good football team too. I mean, there were some guys on that team that could really play. Kurt Russell, who was the other linebacker next to him. There was some a really good team. But through the years, they have all been able to have their own identity, and that's what makes coaching a challenge, in my opinion. It's that every team is different. Every team has a different personality. It has a different motivation, and it's your responsibility to try to mold that in to a team that can achieve and accomplish and reach its full potential.
Coach, I'm going to get personal here. All the accolades, all the championships, what is the thing that still drives you? What lights that fire?
I get that question a lot.
Oh, I thought it was unique.
How much longer are you going to do this? And I'm going to tell you how I really feel.
All right.
The challenge of watching young people achieve is exhilarating. It really is.
It's phenomenal, isn't it?
It is. There's
it's
nothing
like a drug, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It's to watch them start out at this point and then end at this point and recognize their growth as young people is really exciting. And the day that I can't take that field with enthusiasm and excitement about what we're going to do with the game we have coming up this week is a big game against Rummel that we're going to play over at Zephyrs. It's exciting and
it's incredible,
and it's exhilarating. And so when that ever happens, then I'll be out of it. I won't be fishing, but I'll be out of football because it's not fair to cheat those kids. Those kids deserve every opportunity to have the chance to reach their fullest potential.
All right, you mentioned Rummel, okay? I played sports in the Catholic League, and we were always like, hey, Curtis is great, but if they were in the Catholic League, we would show them what it was all about. Well, now you're kind of in the Catholic League, and you're proving you can hang with anybody. It's not just the lower level schools. So does that feel pretty good for you? Say, hey, man, we're proving this to you now.
Well, it doesn't to us because we always felt like that our football teams could compete with anybody.
Nationally, in fact. You play nationally, right?
Yeah, we play a lot of national teams.
Right.
And we felt like that regardless of who we played, we'd have an opportunity to compete. I will say this about the Catholic League. It is the best run league that I've ever participated in. And I've been in a bunch of them. They are highly professional, and they care about every sport that they have in their school. They take care of those kids, and they want to make sure it's first class. And to be honest with you, it has been an enjoyable experience just to be part of it.
As players and athletes, unfortunately, I guess it's human nature. You cherish the championships and the wins, but unfortunately, a lot of us will remember those disappointing losses even more. And you remember every detail of what you could have done differently. Do you have one that sticks out, like you're like, golly, that sticks in your craw? Because we all got at least one. What's yours?
Well, there's a couple. You know, the loss a couple of years to Jesuit in the championship game was really disappointing. It was our first year in the opportunity
I remember
to
it well.
compete
I was
with
there.
it.
Yeah.
But Jesuit played really well, and we made some mistakes that we normally don't make. But that was hard. And back in the day, as the kids would say, we missed a field goal against Wasserman High School out of Monroe. That would have given us
back in the day.
Back in the day,
back in the
that
day.
would have given us a championship. And those things do stick out in your mind. But the bigger picture is to watch those kids, even with those teams, and grow. And this is one of the examples I used. I told him this after one of the games. We lost to Salmon. Coach Stubbs was coaching, and I told him this. I said, guys, this is what you have to remember. If you as a young person can compete at your business and you finish second in your sales force the rest of your life, you're going to be wealthy. You're going to have all the things in life that you want. It's
No
not
doubt
whether you
about
finish
it.
first.
Right.
It's whether you strive to finish first. And although we don't want to ever settle for second, the ability to get there and compete for the top spot is an honor. And you need to look at it that way. And I hope those young people gain that lesson that competing is what's the most important.
Well, Coach, I know you played at Arkansas, so I'm not going to make you sign the LSU ball.
I got a lot of kids
I know
at
you
LSU.
love LSU. You do. Duke Riley's having a great year.
He really is having a great year.
He is a tackling machine this year. But I have a great gift certificate for you, a restaurant in Metairie, and obviously they have one in the Warehouse District. It starts with Legacy,
Legends,
ends
that's
with
a
Kitchen.
great place.
And enjoy that. I got to get you to sign my Saints ball. And by the way, as we close this segment, you've come a long way since 1962 when the school John Curtis opened on the second floor of Carrollton Avenue Baptist Church. That's right. I know my history.
You do
I know my
history.
history, baby, because
There
I
are
grew
not
up
many that
near
remember
Carrollton
that.
Avenue. I know. And then you went on to River Ridge. So congratulations with everything you're doing.
Thank you
And most
so much.
importantly, instilling the values in our young children today. And high
Appreciate
school kids.
that. Thank you.
Love you, JT. He is one of our treasures. We had a lot of treasures here today. One of them, we're going to go long distance. Andy Cannizaro, like I said, two-time All-American at Tulane, four-time starter, shortstop for the Tulane Green Wave. They went to the World Series, one of the greatest seasons ever, the College World Series, that is. Played for the Yankees for years, and now he is the head coach for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. He just got that gig 2 weeks ago, and he's coming right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back, Crescent City. I told you this was going to be a Hall of Fame show, and we've had a bunch of them already. Like I said, Deuce McAllister, he's been in too many that we can even count. The great J.T. Curtis, and, of course, Jeff Duncan. But I saved the best for last. Andy Cannizaro is a guy that went to Tulane back in 1998, a four-year starter at shortstop. How about this? Three-time All-Conference USA, two-time All-American. Then he gets drafted by the New York Yankees. He has 7 years in that organization, including his call-up to the big leagues in 2006. He played a year for the Cleveland Indians, or for the Tampa Bay Rays. He had a couple years there, and also with the Chicago White Sox. But then he went back to the Yankees. He spent 6 more years, 13 total, being a scout in the front office. And then he took the hitting coach job at LSU, did a remarkable job with the Tigers a couple years ago. He was with them again last year. This year, well, he just got named as Mississippi State's head baseball coach. And here he is on the phone live from Starkville. Andy Cannizaro, how are you, my friend?
Scott, what's going on, man? It is great to be on your show. And obviously the last week has been a complete whirlwind for myself and my family. But it's certainly one that's been so excited, man, and just extremely grateful for the opportunity to be the new head baseball coach here at Mississippi State University. Man, I can't believe it. I am so excited.
You're one of the most positive human beings I know. People call me half glass full. I've got nothing on you, but I got to say this. When I think of Mississippi State, the first thing I think of is baseball, because my college years in the 80s, it was Will Clark from New Orleans, superstar. Rafael Palmeiro, superstar. Bobby Thigpen, Jeff Brantley. Mississippi State has a great history. Can you take us through the process of how this started with the contact y'all had up until the time you got named as their head coach?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it was certainly a very crazy time. And, you know, in terms of, you know, we were in the middle of our fall practice at LSU and, you know, was certainly 100% committed to my job and our players that were at LSU at the time, trying to coach those guys as hard as I could every single day to make those guys the very best hitters they could possibly be. And so just in the middle of fall practice, had an inquiry from John Cohen in terms of his interest in being the next athletic director at Mississippi State. And if that were to come to fruition, would I have some interest in speaking to him about becoming the next head baseball coach at Mississippi State? And obviously I relayed to him that I would love the opportunity to speak to him if that were to happen for him, becoming the athletic director. And Scott, I kind of just, you know, completely forgot about it, honestly, and it wasn't even a thought of mine. And like I said, we were in the middle of fall practice, and we were extremely busy recruiting. I was out of town down in Florida a lot the month of October, sandwiched in between our home football games that were jam-packed with recruiting weekends, where I was recruiting and doing everything I could to try to convince the very best players in the country to come to LSU, to come play for Paul Maneri and try to win a national championship at LSU. And then, out of the blue, John Cohen gets named the athletic director. Fast forward in a month and a half, and he places a call to my former boss, Paul Maneri, and asked for permission to speak to me about the job. John and I spoke about the job, and it was really a very quick process, a very quick transition from becoming the recruiting coordinator and hitting coach at LSU to the new head baseball coach here at Mississippi State. And this is a program that has so much pride and so much tradition. You're talking about some of the greatest college baseball players in the history of the game that have come through Mississippi State and have built this program to one of the very best college baseball programs in the country. And I'm so excited and so honored to be the head baseball coach here, and I want to do everything in my power to help Mississippi State bring home that first national championship back to Starkville, Mississippi.
Man, you're getting me fired up. I feel like I want to put the cleats back on and get out there and play. By the way, I know you're going to be missed at LSU. I know this firsthand. My godson is a freshman at LSU, and he's been going through those fall practices, and I know they're going to miss you, but they're all happy for you for sure. Hey, you're a New Orleans kid, right? You're in a baseball family. You go play for the Tulane Green Wave. I've got to bring them, but I got to give Tulane some love here. Talk about that 2001 team that went to the World Series, beat LSU right there at Zephyrs Park to go to the World Series. That was one of the most special teams I've ever seen, certainly on the local level.
Wow, I really appreciate it. And that particular 2001 team was so special. I mean, you had players with so much ability. There was great team chemistry. You know, having the opportunity to play collegiately for Rick Jones as the head coach and Jim Schlossnagle as the assistant, who's now the terrific head coach at TCU right now. You know, that was a really special team that we had won the most baseball games in the history of Tulane baseball. It culminated with our first trip to the College World Series where we beat LSU, like you mentioned, in front of 15,000 people for 3 straight days out at Zephyr Field. And it really was, Scott, a dream come true for me to even be able to play at Tulane. It was the university that I dreamed about when I was growing up, wanting to play there, and to have that opportunity was amazing. And I did everything we possibly could between myself and our teammates to put Tulane baseball on the national map in terms of college baseball programs. And I think we were certainly able to do that. And then obviously Tulane was able to get back to the World Series in 2005 and has made several regional appearances since then. So, you know, I just take a lot of pride in being able to say that I played at Tulane, to say that I graduated at Tulane, and ultimately met my wife at Tulane. So it was a great experience for me, and it was one that I was, very lucky to have had.
Hey, good things come for those who wait. I've only got like 45 seconds, but real quick, if you can make this short, you went for the Tulane head coaching job recently when obviously David Pierce took the Texas job. Good things come to those who wait, don't they?
It's funny how things have worked out, and, certainly want to wish Tulane University nothing but the best. They'll always have a special place in my heart. But, listen, we're on to a new challenge now here at Mississippi State University, and I really, honestly, truly think I have one of the best college baseball head coaching jobs in the country. And like I said, we're going to do everything in our power to recruit the very best players in the state of Mississippi and the very best players nationally to win that very first national championship here at Mississippi State. And I'm all in, man. I'm so fired up for this job. I'm loving every second of it.
Andy, we love you down here in New Orleans. I wish I had another hour to talk to you because I know we could get into a ton of stuff at LSU, Tulane, Yankees, everything else. Just know that we're rooting for you. Just take it easy on our Tigers, okay? Take care, buddy.
Scott, I appreciate it, man. Hail State.
All right, man. Hey, that's Andy Cannizaro. It's been a great show. I wish I could talk to all my guests a little bit longer because I got to go, but I got to give thanks to the people behind the scenes. It can't get done without my producer, William Hill. He takes all this stuff I bring to him, and he's like, Scott, how are we going to do this? But he manages to do it each and every show and does it fantastically. Everybody else, Josh Smith, we call him Jay Smoove. We got Kenny Juno. We got Naila. We've got our guys there, Ron and Jim. I thank them all here from the WLAE family. Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next week.